This is Scott the Fix-It Guy. Today we have a Maytag washer dryer laundry center, and the washer is not going to spin, so we set it for spin. It kind of goes back and forth, but it never really gets up to speed, so we're going to replace the wax motor. We got the part number here. It's a little gizmo that has wax inside, and as the wax heats up it pushes a piston, and the piston locks the door and also pushes a little switch that tells the computer that it's safe to go to spin. But the wax degrades and the piston doesn't move far enough, so you just have to replace them. Sometimes you also have to replace the machine control circuit board, but you may get lucky and only need to replace the little goofy wax motor, which is only about $25. Circuit boards are pretty expensive, so let's hope that the resistors are not burned out and that the wax motor will be enough. One way you can tell is just to replace the wax motor and see if that does the job. If not, it may be necessary to do the circuit board. So to get to the wax motor, we took off that front panel. We're going to remove the door by removing 2 Phillips head screws, and we're just going to grab the door and kind of wiggle it out. And then we have a couple of fasteners that are holding on the front panel on the right side. And again, just Phillips head screws, you got to remove them. The Neptune washing machine comes apart pretty cool, pretty cool design. Comes apart pretty fast. So we take out these two and then remove the door. And then we can just grab the sides of this front panel, wiggle them out towards you, and then you can lift it up off of the 2 clips at the bottom. Set it aside. And then there's just a few more screws that we have to remove on the upper cowling that's hiding the wax motor. So there's one here on the right, one on the left. I'm just going to take a look down here. Here's a little switch that can also keep it from spinning if that switch gets pressed because the machine's wobbling around too much. It's also good to push in on the motor control board connections, these 3 modular connectors, because if they get loose, that can also cause a no spin situation. So while you got it open, it wouldn't hurt to do this. You just pull each modular connector off by wiggling it back and then just push it back on, and that can make sure that it's tight, and also can sometimes break up some corrosion that may have formed on the terminals. So now we're going to be removing these clips that hold on the cowling. I'll spin off these 2 bolts, one on the right, one on the left. You're going to take this clip, pull it towards you, and slip it out from underneath the cowling. There's that one on the right, and then one on the left. There we go. And then there's also a little bolt holding the cowling right in the middle, and to kind of push the wires back a little bit to get to it. Spin that off, and then we have access to the wax motor and the locking mechanism. I wish the video was a little bit better here, but it's this red part, that's the wax motor. So what I want to do first is just get the 2 electrical terminals off of the wax motor, and you can use some needle nose pliers or maybe a standard head screwdriver to just gently pry them off. And the working space is pretty tight, so just take your time. Careful not to pull too hard on anything because you don't want to break one of the plastic pieces. So once we get the terminals off, there's a silver spring metal piece behind the wax motor, and we have to get that off. And to get it off, we have to get a standard head screwdriver underneath it and gently pry it up. There's room above it for you to be able to take it out. So it's just putting pressure on the back of the wax motor, kind of keeping it in position. Once you get that off, then you want to take the wax motor and bring it back towards your left by about 1/4 inch. And there's little openings in the plastic where you can then gently pull it out towards you. You have to lift up on the back of it, get it up at a slightly oblique angle, and then take your time, just gently pull it towards you so that the front part of it, the black piston part, releases from the white plastic piece that it's locked into. There's the new one and the old one. And then the new one kind of goes in the opposite. You're going to push the black piston part into the white casing first. And then you're going to have the wax motor back towards your left to be able to put it back in, kind of like the way you took it out. There's a little slot that helps it fit in. And then once you have it in position, you can push the wax motor to your right, and then you'll be able to put the silver spring clip back in. And the way you put that back in is you're going to have it up high initially behind the wax motor, and there's a little slot for the spring clip to fit into, and you just push it down slowly. I usually use a standard head screwdriver to give me a little leverage. And then you want to put the power terminals back on. Again, there's very little room, so I usually use like some needle nose pliers to help me get it into position, especially the one in the back. It's a little tricky. The one in the front's pretty easy. And just make sure your connections are really good. Here's that spring clip piece. And once you have everything in, just check your connections that are available to you for the micro switches. Just push the terminals on, make sure everything's tight. Sometimes, things can vibrate loose over time, and you can have a no spin situation due to just one of the terminals is loose. So I just like to check them while I have everything open. So we got our new wax motor in position. Terminals hooked up. Here's the ones on the motor control. Make sure they're tight. And I'm going to also push in on the one that hooks to the motor. Make sure that one's tight. And that should do the trick. We just put it all back together. Put the cowling back on. Put in that one little bolt right in the middle. Get that tight. All right, and we're going to put in the clips on the left hand and right hand side to hold down the cowling. So we're going to slip it up underneath and then put it down against the frame, and then put in the bolt to hold it. We'll do the left side. There we go. Okay, now we put the front panel back on its clips at the bottom. We push it in. We kind of wiggle the two side pieces in, and then we're going to put in the Phillips head screws with the white plastic pieces on the right side. We'll zip those in. we got that. And then to put the door in, just take your time. You have to put these little metal legs back into the slots and just give them in position and then push in and wiggle, and they'll kind of feed themselves back in. You have to lift up a little bit on the door and then push them in, and then we'll put those 2 Phillips head screws in to hold them. Okay, we'll give it a test now. So we press start. It'll take a little bit of time for the door lock light to come on because the wax motor has to expand. If you ever have to get to the machine control, it's up here at the top of the dryer. You have to take off these panels, and that's where the other thing that can control the spin, you may need to replace that if the little resistors are burned out. I think it's R11 and R32, I believe, but those are a couple little resistors that might get burned out. In this case though, it was just the wax motor, because when I tested it, I got a nice spin. I wanted to make sure it was working, so I also put in a bunch of the sheets and towels, clothing, to do a live test. I got it wet, did agitation, and then I set it for spin. And it takes a little while, but the light comes on and it gradually starts picking up speed. And then here we are at top speed, so it did really good. And one way you can tell is when you open it up at the end of the spin cycle, the clothes are pretty dry. If they're still sopping wet, that means it didn't get up to enough speed, and that means that the wax motor alone did not do the trick, that you would have to also replace that circuit board that lives up above the dryer. But these came out really good. They're pretty much just dry. So I hope this video helps you, and please subscribe to our channel when you get a chance. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.